So, hi everyone. I'm joined today by co-founder and CEO of Start Codon. He's a scientist, an entrepreneur, a father, and an incredibly decent human being. It's Jason Mellad.
Hi everyone. Thanks, Priya.
Oh, yeah, thanks for joining us. I was wondering if you could just give us a bit of background on yourself and Start Codon and kind of that journey, if that's okay.
Sure. So I've been in the UK for 20 years, born and bred and raised in Louisiana in the States by my amazing parents who immigrated from the Caribbean. So I'm kind of wearing all sorts of hats, belonging to multiple different cultures. Came over in 2004, did my PhD, then ended up going to industry. So I decided academia wasn't for me. So did a brief stint of consultancy, then tech transfer, then worked in biotech. I was CEO of. Um, Grew the company, had an amazing team, incredible ups and downs I learned from. And I leveraged all of that with my co-founder Dan when we set up Start Codon, which is about investing in life science opportunities from across the UK, usually first-time founders from a diverse range of backgrounds and experiences, and helping them secure the funding they need and build the teams required to be a success.
Wow, it's quite the journey. I love that you came from Louisiana. That must be where that cool accent comes from.
Oh, it's the
So.
best place ever. I should get a commission. Everyone should go to New Orleans.
I'd love to one day, actually. But yeah, thanks again for kind of joining us. So, just to give you some background, and if anyone's joining us for the first time, this is a continuation of a conversation that started on International Women's Day. So, we're a little tired at Agility Life Sciences of the fact that one day is given over to women, and then it's a ticked box, and that's everything that we've ever needed for equality and equity. So thanks very much for March the 8th. But we think there's value in continuing the conversation. So this year, the theme was invest in women to accelerate progress. And these are the types of conversations that we're having. So talking about investment, and not just investment in women, but diverse investment, and how important it is to drive real change. So I guess what I wanted to ask is what does investing mean to you when you
So
think
I
of?
think investing implies that you have some resource that you can devote towards a task or an outcome. It doesn't have to be necessarily capital. It could be your time. It could be access to your network. It could be all sorts of things you do to help support someone else or another organization achieve their aims, and hopefully their aims that you are really aligned with. So in my world, investment means not only putting capital into the bank accounts of startup companies focused on therapeutics, diagnostics, etc. It also means investing our time to help support the founders. It means investing our experience and really opening up our network and making sure that they have the foundations they need to be successful. So there are a lot of ways that you can invest in people and in ideas and in organizations. We are very focused on the individual in terms of talent because we feel that people are at the center of everything we do. And forget
Mm.
about AI. I like actual intelligence. Artificial intelligence is nice, it's a great tool, but we like actual intelligence and emotional intelligence in particular. So we invest a lot of our time and emotions and resources into helping people. So investment, I think anybody can be an investor. We typically think investor means you've got money and you're putting it into something, but we can all be investors because we have valuable resources.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I absolutely love that. And I love actual intelligence instead of artificial intelligence. I think that's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, investment that's like the non-cash, I feel like sometimes can be more valuable. It opens opportunities and opens people's minds and eyes to see possibilities that weren't there to begin with. Is there anyone that really invested in you and that made an impact in kind of your life and your journey?
Multiple people. I always like to say that my parents, I always start with them because they were immigrants to the States, brought my brother up and myself in the deep South, which was an experience and a half. I mean, Louisiana is a fantastic place in a lot of ways, but it was a challenge
Yeah.
growing up. But I'm so grateful for it, not only for them, but also for those experiences. And all along my life and career, I've had people who stand out in my mind that really looked out for me. I remember Mrs. Liggins, who was my kindergarten teacher that helped me get into the gifted and talented program in a school where they weren't excited about desegregating their classrooms. I remember when I was at university, Dean Jean, who's now dearly departed, who helped me not only get into the honors college, but encouraged me to apply for a scholarship, which landed me in Cambridge in the UK, and I've been here ever since. I remember even my friend Ian Thomas, who was my boss at Cambridge Enterprise where I used to work, who phoned me up one day after I left and said, "There's a new company called Cambridge Epigenetics, and I really think that this is a great opportunity for you, Jason. I want to introduce you to the founders." And one thing led to another. I became the third employee and then eventually promoted to CEO. So I've had numerous people who supported me, and they've all consistently said the one thing they wanted back from me in return was that I pay it forward to somebody else. So I try whenever possible to support other people because I'm so grateful for those who supported me.
Yeah, it's great. It makes me think of, is it Newton who said kind of standing on the shoulders of giants when he talked about his discoveries and his kind of inventions. And he said, yeah, but I only got here because I could stand on the shoulders of giants. You know, everyone that comes
Yes.
before you and gives you those opportunities, that is so important.
Well, it's so interesting you say that because there's this concept, particularly in the States, of, the self-made person.
Mm.
And I don't think that's one ever true. Maybe in some case somebody out there has had no help or support, but also it's not something we should aspire towards. It shouldn't be like, yeah, I can go out and brag that I did it all on my own. That makes me feel really sad for somebody who would think that. I'd rather brag that, oh, I did it as a team and I had all these amazing supporters and I'm
Yeah,
so grateful. That's what we should be holding up as the model for success so that people who are individuals on their own thinking that somehow magically they just have
mhm.
to wake up and be perfect. We say, actually, that's not how it works. All these people you see in the news and these press releases and on television, they've all had support, loads of it.
Yeah. And it's more joyful, it's quicker, it's more
Yeah,
you'll probably find it's easier. You can achieve more if you kind of are willing to work with people.
exactly. Together, everyone achieves more. I love acronyms. I got lots of cheesy acronyms. But team is together, everyone achieves more. And it's true.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Um, was there ever a time that you felt like you wanted investment and you could see other people around you getting it, but you felt like there was a kind of an inequality in how investment was dished out and how opportunity was kind of dished out?
I think all of my life, I've had incidences or let's say I've been in environments where I could feel that was true, whether it be in the education system, the healthcare system, raising capital for my businesses, applying for jobs. There's always been this element, especially when you cross multiple, let's say, I tick many boxes for being openly gay, but also being black and a child of immigrants and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in any given situation, I could easily say, oh, okay, I've noticed there's a difference.
Mm.
But I use it as motivation. I've never thought about it having held me back. What it's done is propelled me forward because it makes me more resilient. It encourages me to fight harder. And it's something my parents told to my brother and I from a young age. You will always have to work twice as hard to get half as far, but don't let that discourage you. It's your superpower. And I don't like to talk about superpowers because I think it makes it sound like people have things that others don't. But for me personally, beyond being supported by others, there have been situations where I think, wow, it's very clear to me that that bit of feedback isn't exactly the same feedback I would have gotten if I were a different person, or there's opportunities I didn't have access to because of X, Y, or Z. But it doesn't matter. I'm always trying to find that silver lining. I'm always looking at turning a challenge into an opportunity. And I think it's about having the right mindset more than anything. Yes, there are going to be challenges, and certain people who are far less privileged than I have faced far greater challenges than I ever have. But I think it's better to focus on how can we use our unique situations to get ahead and appreciate that we've had to work harder for some things and we can enjoy it even more.
Wow, that's quite it's a very rounded, balanced kind of approach to potentially having to work a lot harder than some of your peers.
Otherwise I'd be in a corner crying some days, which is nothing wrong with that. And some days I do. Let's be clear. I have my days. I'm human. I don't, I can't maintain a positive, optimistic attitude 100% of the time. Sometimes I'm really frustrated, but I always try to think, how can I channel that frustration into something good? Because if you think about it, on that point, when people frustrate and anger you, you're almost giving away a bit of power if you think about it,
Mhm.
right? So we have to be very careful who we empower to make us feel some kind of way, because they're not really making you feel some way. We choose and control to some extent how we react.
Yeah.
So if we get angry, and then what are we going to do with that emotion? We have to channel it to something good. As my hero Beyonce says, always say gracious, best revenge is your paper. And she's right.
All right, I like that. Yeah, it's exhausting being angry and
It
being
is.
fed up. That energy could be used for much, much better things.
Exactly.
It's kind of the way that even if I can't do it mentally, even if it's giving me a mental block for something, I can certainly get in the swimming pool, go for a long walk. There's lots of other things that kind of can fill your cup, reduce the
Yes,
anger, and then make you think about things in a different way.
exactly.
It's yeah, it's very important, I think. I think you're right to kind of not give the power away, but harness it for your own progression and your own kind of development. Um, if diverse investment is the goal, which I think it is, I think until we have real diversity and equity to access that for investment, how do you think we can go about that? How do you think we can go about improving it?
So, especially in the business world, it's about demonstrating with KPIs and clear metrics how diversity is going to lead to better business outcomes in terms of sustainability, but also revenue and growth, because you don't have to compromise one for the other. There's this fallacy that somehow diversity is a charitable thing or that it's for optics, and both of those are wrong. We're promoting diversity and equity and inclusion because it makes the best business sense. Every study that's been out for the last couple of decades, when they've started quantifying these things, that we know more diverse teams are more successful. End of. So I think we're in a world where I find that maybe say 20 or so years ago, diversity was still a hot button topic. I don't know, a little bit of controversy, a bit like climate change. And I was like, climate change doesn't care if you believe in it because climate change is happening, right? So I feel the same with diversity. Diversity doesn't care if you believe or support diversity for the right reasons. It's happening. So you better get on board because the future is female and very colorful. So what that means is now we have several people who say, oh, okay, you finally have convinced me. It's not the moral argument that sold me, it's the business argument. Great. I need diversity because I want my investments to be more successful. I want a
Mhm.
better return on the investment. How do I find and create that diversity? That's the next challenge. So there's helping support individuals,
Mhm.
personal development and everything else, finding them, supporting them, putting them in roles where they can get the experience they need to keep going up. But also, we have to make sure that we're addressing a diverse set of needs. It's no good to say, well, there's a company that historically has only focused on men in terms of their customer base or the drugs they're developing, etc. Oh, and now they've hired a couple of female board members. Okay, that's nice. But what about
Mm.
the 51% of the global population that are women who are historically underserved? So it's not just diversity of thought and of individuals, it's also increasing the diversity of the issues that we're addressing and the products we're producing.
And is that something that you do at Start Code on when you're looking when people come and approach you? Kind of, you said you're working with the people, and it could be right at the very first step for their funding. Is that something that you actively seek out, or do you find that these opportunities come to you because they know how you want to work?
I think if we only relied on inflow, we wouldn't get the diversity that we need. And
Mhm.
what I find, and I'm sure this has been cited by many people, but I spend a lot of my time, especially with women, encouraging them to apply, encouraging them to spin out their company, or encouraging them to reach out and engage and pursue grants. Because in my experience, women tend on the whole to be more self-selective and more conservative, thinking if I don't tick all the boxes, I'm not going for it. Whereas most of the applicants we get just cold come in are from male founders who are like, woohoo, I'm amazing. And I go, but you're not even working in the life sciences. They're like, yeah, but I'm so amazing. Give me money for my flying car. I'm like, we explicitly invest in life sciences and healthcare. Why are you coming to me with a flying car? But they're just like, because I'm great. You'll make an exception. Because I'm like, oh my gosh. So I spend a lot of time trying to balance that out. So
Wow.
a lot of the programs that we do is trying to find people from diverse backgrounds, neurodiversity as well, things like that, and encouraging them to come in and apply. And then, of course, triaging things that just come in cold. But we wouldn't get the numbers and the diversity and mix that we would have now if it hadn't been for us actively going out and finding it.
Yeah, that's really interesting as well. You mentioning kind of the neurodiversity side of things because I think it is. I think people think of diversity and they think it's either it's women, it's men, it's people of color, and it's LGBTQ plus. But there is also kind of you know affluence, people's disabilities and different abilities, and it sounds like maybe you allow your processes allow for all of those different people to come to you and fund. Presumably, if you had a way like this cold way to come to you guys, if someone said, I just can't do this, then you would maybe meet them where they are to find out what the opportunity is.
I have 100%. And what's important too is we look at people as opportunities to help close their gaps and upskill them, as opposed to only focusing on what they lack. So I
Mm,
say that anybody, literally anybody, is capable of being the next big, unicorn, billion-dollar CEO, et cetera, et cetera. It's all there. The question is, what's their path, and how are you going to support them to get there?
mm,
So with that in mind, it might be higher hurdles for some than others, but I think everybody has a capability. So if a founder comes to us and they say, well, okay, I don't have this experience or I don't understand this aspect, how do we build a team to help support them? And then recognizing that maybe they're the leader for now, but not the leader forever. And we build in some resiliency. So we say, okay, we're building a team around you so that maybe as the company grows, it can continue to evolve. What's important is that we recognize, like you said, what diversity really means. I've been in situations where, for example, there are university statistics that come out saying, wow, look, diversity is great. We've got this many women and this many people of color. But then everybody still came from a private school.
mm. Yeah,
That's not, it doesn't cut it.
no.
And neurodiversity and other things like socioeconomic and often in LGBTQ IA status can often be hidden characteristics.
Mhm.
So as long as you create a safe space where people don't feel that it will be held against them, then you start to be able to lean into that. So I always tell people about how proud I am to be openly queer, how proud I am to be ADHD and managing it to the best of my ability. Like I want them to know that if I can do it, they can do it too.
Yeah, there's space for people to be who they are. And that will allow that. We were talking about this just the other day at Agility about how there's if people have got to be anything other than their authentic self, then that means they're giving 10% or 20% of their brain space to covering up who they are. That's not where we want your brain space to be. We want your brain space to be here, I'm me, I'm safe, I'm comfortable. And then they'll be able to give you their best and they'll be able to, go on in your case, who knows what they'll be discovering, inventing, turning
Yeah.
into, like you say, the next unicorn.
This
So,
it's just so funny to me, Freya. It's like it's so logical, but we
yeah,
live in such an illogical world. It's like, guys, don't you understand that masking and hiding and all this nonsense is so emotionally and mentally taxing and
yeah,
physically that you're not getting the most out of people. So why wouldn't you create an environment where they can be their best selves?
absolutely.
It's a
Yeah,
no-brainer.
yeah. It's such a basic, like basic
Yeah,
concept. Yeah. It's be like if you said to somebody, I need you to break the 100-meter record, but could you just wear shoes that are two sizes too small?
yeah,
Well,
right. Oh, and a blindfold and a backpack full of bricks. But then
yeah.
otherwise, yeah, just go for it.
Yeah, go for it. I think it should be no problem for you though, right? Because you'll be fitting into the mold of everyone else. Because normally that's how it's been done in the past. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's absurd. No, I love that. You said something before we came on the call that you think diversity is going to be. What did you say? The biggest
Yes.
disruptor. I'd love to hear you
Diversity.
say that again and get to.
Yes, definitely. So I would like to tell people that I'm a Jedi. One, because I love Star Wars, because I think it's more fun than saying DEI. So it is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. It's fun to say Jedi, right? Who doesn't want to be a Jedi?
That's so good.
So using the Force, as it were, I think that inclusion and being the Jedi principles of, justice, equity, diversity, inclusion are going to be the most disruptive innovation in the history of humankind, specifically because there's so many incredible people who either don't have access to the resources, they don't believe they can do it, they don't have the support, or their actual physical, regulatory, financial, you name it, barriers stopping them from achieving their true potential. And if we eliminated those barriers, not to the point where they don't exist, because there's a little bit of friction is actually really good to get people to grow. But if we remove those unnecessary hurdles, think what we could accomplish. There are people across the globe who have the answers, who have the solutions to all of our problems now and going forward, but they just don't have access. They don't have the support or the visibility that they need. So in my mind, forget about AI, forget about all these other things, plastics, next gen sequencing. If we could untap all that human capital, think what we could achieve.
Yeah, that's actually quite a chilling thought when you think about the backdrop of like the problems that we face as humanity, like climate change, something like that, which is whether you like it or not, it's happening. This world is going to become more uninhabitable as we go into the
Yeah.
future. But the answers are in human brains somewhere out there. But like you say, they could go untapped, unacknowledged,
Yeah.
unutilized, and that's actually quite a terrifying thought.
Well,
That
it's interesting. If I could give a quick example, there was a kind of documentary that I watched recently about tribes, I believe in the Andes, that have a special type of corn that they've been growing for millennia, presumably. These are indigenous groups there. And it grows to like, multi-meters high and it self-fertilizes. So somehow it can capture nitrogen from the air and fertilize itself. So they don't need to use all these toxic, harmful fertilizers that we use elsewhere. And it's only been recently discovered. So now these scientists are swooping in saying, this could revolutionize how crops are grown. Imagine if they could all self-fertilize. But that knowledge has been in that community for
yeah,
millennia, and we're only
yeah.
just now realizing it. So how many other untapped things have we not even begun to uncover?
It's exciting. It's a really exciting prospect. And I think it does come back to this idea that you have to be diverse. You have to talk to everybody. You have to give everybody a seat at the table so that they can tell you what they know.
Yeah,
You can be like, thank goodness you were here.
exactly. Yeah. I was going to ask ChatGPT, but this is a much better answer. I'll just talk to
Yeah,
you.
yeah, this is way better. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Do you think when you look back, kind of, it sounds like, did you say you've been here for 20 years in the
20
UK
years. Yeah.
and it sounds like you've had a real kind of tapestry of different careers and roles and things. Do you think it's improved in your experience? Do you think things are better and that they are still improving, or do you think things have, how do you think about that if you think about improvement?
So I would think that the pendulum swings quite widely. And I feel at the moment we kind of go far left to far right and far left to far right, back and forth. But overall, the progress of history is still moving in the right direction and things are getting much better. I still remember when gay marriage, same-sex marriage was legalized, and that was 6 and a bit years into my relationship with my now husband. And we jumped on it. We thought, oh, finally we can get married and be recognized. So there's always improvement. I think we are moving in the right direction overall. So definitely there's still lots to be done and we cannot become complacent. So just because, let's say, one thing
Mm.
gets solved, it doesn't mean that there are many more that still need to be sorted out. And I think the most important thing for me is that we have the power and the privilege and the platform now to be able to help continue the fight.
Yeah, I like that. That feels a bit positive. Sometimes I feel like things are going backwards, but maybe it's because I'm too close to it and I need to look at the longer term trend and see that actually things are improving. Because sometimes it feels like, yeah,
Uh,
you read a certain slice of news or you kind of get hammered by a few stories, particularly about like a homophobic attack here or an aggravated racial assault, and then before you know it, you just think we're no better than we were. But I think perhaps systemically there are some improvements that maybe I should take heart from.
I think part of the challenge we have is all the algorithms trying to get clicks, etc. They know that negativity gets more clicks and more views.
Yeah.
So let's say there's one negative for every four positive. Let's assume. I don't know. It might be a
Mhm.
different ratio, but let's assume we are going to see 100 more of the negative thing than we ever do of the positive because that gets our brains engaged. It's like a dopamine hit. So I find that when we step away, especially from the screens and we go and talk to people on the ground, I'm like, oh, actually, people are kinder. There's more people who are supportive. I see, for example, the Pride celebrations in Cambridge. They've only been going for a few years, but every year they get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because more and
Yeah.
more people come, more allies are there, etc. So as much as I still see there's a lot of, homophobic and transphobic in particular attacks in the
Mm.
media, on the ground, I'm thinking, wait a second, it feels like we're getting more allies, but they don't report about that on the news, do they?
No, you're right, actually. I should take heart more from what I see with my own eyes rather than what I read in the press. It is getting better. Do you think the changes are happening quickly enough, positive changes, or do you think things could be happening faster? Or do you?
Well, I think things could always happen faster, but I find that if they happen too fast, then they just get overcorrected the opposite direction.
Mhm.
So you want to bring people along with you on the journey. And I'll never forget, this is again sticking on same-sex marriage in the States with Obama, and they were going against him and Hillary, oh, what's your position, etc., in politics. And I said, I can understand why he felt at the time that he needed to bring the whole of the population along for the journey rather than just saying overnight, here we are. There's something really important about getting people there. I've experienced that with my own family and my partner's family. It's taking us a long time to get to the space where they love us and embrace us. Most of them, not all. And the ones that don't, we leave them to it. But for the ones who matter most, it took time. It
Mm.
did. And yes, it would have been great if like immediately they said, "Oh, this is wonderful." But now I can savor it that much more because we had to work for it. And now we know it's going to stick. It wasn't just some superficial thing they said. Because it took time, it actually builds up that resilience, that robustness. It's a bit like if you exercise. You could take steroids and become really swole overnight, or you could exercise and work at it. It's far better and it lasts much longer.
Yeah, you're very philosophical, very patient about these things. This
I've
is
I've learned, Freya, over the years, I've learned how to be.
Um, is there anything that you'd like to see in the future that would confirm to you that things are heading in the right direction, or maybe that we're arriving at where you think we should be, kind of as humanity and as society? What-
It might be slightly controversial, but I would love to see that defining characteristics are a non-issue across the board.
Mhm.
It's interesting because I feel that things like Pride, for example, which I enjoy, and it's a celebration of our community, they're needed. I'd like to see a world where things like that are wanted, but they're not needed. Like
Mhm.
we want to celebrate, but we're in a world where it's, generations from now, they're like, really? People had an issue with that? How could anybody be sexist or racist? You needed a women's history day? Like, why would you even need that? Because of course women are equal. Like, can you imagine that world where it's wanted because we want to elevate, but it's not needed because everybody just knows that we are truly equal and that equity and all these things have been addressed. It's a bit like a charity existing to help meet an unmet need, but hopefully trying to write itself out of existence.
Yeah, that's that's really good actually. I like that. It always I work with a few charities, and you kind of say like, "What's the end goal?" And you're like, "Well, the end goal is that we're not that we make ourselves obsolescent
Yeah,
because there's no need for it. There's no homelessness, and
yeah.
people have mental health care resources, and we don't have to worry about this. We don't have to be a charity anymore. It's just there." And you think, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, of course that is the end goal." It just feels like it's all so far away.
Well, exactly. But I do think COVID, if it taught us anything, is that we're all in this together. And I hope that that attitude carries forward. It seems like we forgot about it because we went right back to the wars and all the nonsense. But I'd love to have more of a nurturing, collaborative, political, let's say, movement or tenor to all the activities we see rather than this might makes right, testosterone driven, like I'm going to beat you down and take it. If we could just move into a whole new world, kind of Little Mermaid style, but without the problematic themes.
Yeah.
We could move. Oh, that's Aladdin. Sorry, wrong Disney film. See, I'm misquoting. I'm tired. So if we could move in that direction, that would be great.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And do you think as individuals, sometimes I think it's hard as well to be you feel like you're part of this enormous machine and that you can't really drive any change. But do you think there's value in the individual piece and power as an individual?
Massive. And it's a bit like in the Matrix, if you take the right pill and you realize just how much power you have, you can do so much. But we have been conditioned to think that we're small and we don't have power or agency. And
Mm.
that's how certain people keep us in our place and can maintain their influence and their seats of power because they want the masses to believe that we are powerless. And it's not true. We all have agency. We all have the ability to change the world around us. And even if it's something that is relatively a small gesture, it can have a massive impact. I think about the people who supported me. I think
Mhm.
about little things. I was just actually, here's an example. Talking to my co-founder, Dan, he has an autoimmune condition, and he just happened to have it diagnosed because a clinician in the hallway saw that his knee was swollen and said, that looks a bit odd. Turns out it was an autoimmune condition, not a sports injury like he thought. So
Wow.
that changed his life. Little things like that can have a huge impact,
Mhm.
and that's power.
Yeah, I love that. That feels like quite a nice place to perhaps wrap up. It's a beautiful circle back to gratitude with the people that have kind of invested in you right from the start, the individuals, your kindergarten teacher and your parents. And yeah, I love that. It feels quite empowered as well. I feel a bit uplifted. Is there anything that you're kind of working on at the moment that you'd like to shout about or anything that you're really passionate about that you'd like to direct people to?
I would just say keep an eye out for all the activities that we're supporting. There's the Diverse Directors Program that my colleague M co-founded that is looking at helping people from multiple backgrounds, diversity in the biggest sense of the term, get board seats and become non-executive directors in a lot of these incredible companies. And I'm scoping out my next adventures, so stay tuned.
Yeah, brilliant. And just a little shout out on the Diverse Directors Programme. I believe Paula Rogers Brown, my interview last month, is on the Diverse Directors, and she was recommended to us by Lynn Trowbridge, who is also on the Diverse Directors
Look,
Programme.
there you go. It works. And they're both incredible.
Yeah. So thank you. But yeah, I'll keep an eye out for that and we'll make sure we shout it out. Cool. Thanks very much, Jason.
So thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure.